my biggest purchase ever was Bitcoin in 2011. I've bought a bunch of these tokens that have massively depreciated in value. I think lots of investors have. I kind of fell into it as well. Like, I thought, wow, this is incredible. I get to buy these tokens. They do all of this cool stuff. They represent all this value. And my experience has been the opposite of that. I've lost a lot of money in these things. And so, I really hope that regulators, not just obviously, I hope that regulators do the best they can to get investors' money back in FTX. But I really also hope they figure out all these other tokens as well, because you can just rank them in terms of market cap, start at the top and work your way down. And you will see that these were unregulated securities, Jason, that were manufactured and sold by our brethren. Public markets a lot as well. So like when you see heavily shorted names, or when you know that certain hedge funds are on the brink, other hedge funds will go in and essentially force a margin call and a stop out, because then it's what causes all of these runs. And if you look actually inside of GameStop, the reason why you got all this gamification in the GameStop equity and a bunch of these other names was in part because of this dynamic. Folks that are highly levered, folks that don't have the right matching of risk. And what happens is they're solvent but illiquid. And then if you run the instrument into the ground, they both become insolvent and illiquid all at the same time, and the whole thing explodes. So, Brian, the question is, now that we know what happened, which is all of these crazy inter-party related transactions, and all of this stuff seems very illegal, there was a bankruptcy filing today, and up until today, it seemed like this issue was really about FTX International and Alameda, and it didn't touch FTX US, which for a long time tried to position itself as, well run and regulated as Coinbase. To be, they tried to say that. But now, if you look inside the Wall Street Journal, all the articles say that this is actually FTX Group, so the whole thing seems to be imperiled. Can you just help us explain that? Because now that's a lot of US people that were following the rules, thinking that this thing was matched one-to-one, that may be also affected. There was an article that appeared that said that the head of compliance at FTX was also the head of compliance at a poker site called Ultimate Bet, which in the 2010s did this exact thing, apparently. Some version of this where they went in and they looked at hole cards of poker players, and then a few employees inside the business would basically play against these folks, knowing what the hole cards were, ran this cheat, stole millions of dollars. Somehow that person found a way to be head of compliance at FTX.
Yeah.
10 years later, which is incredible. But back to this question. So now what happens now is you have the international business and the US business and Alameda Research all rolled up into this one frozen entity, right? With now regulators having to... So do you know what happens in a process like this? Like, is it that the DOJ and the SEC get priority, or is there some international monetary, like who unwinds all of this? How do people get their money back, if at all? There's a couple of things I think that are worth looking at now that we have all the exit polling and the results. The Democrat strategy of helping to promote these extremist MAGA candidates in the primaries turned out to be a huge winning strategy, because every single one that they helped put up against a Democrat, the Democrats won. But number two, so what that shows is the extreme right cannot field a winning candidate. But on the other side, all of these extreme left-leaning Democrats also did not do very well either. And so you're back to, David, what you said, which is we have been saying for a while, the winning strategy is that messy middle. It's the moderate person that kind of like tacks to the center. And this is what you see everywhere around the country, all of the ballot initiatives. Every time you had an extremist ballot initiative, whether it was a complete ban on abortion in a red state, or whether it was a tax the rich policy in a blue state, they failed. And so I think the message that you have to take away is the extreme left doesn't work, the extreme right doesn't work. People need to really understand and look at the data on the ground. If you want to win in 24, you got to be in the middle and you got to clean 100%. Up all of this extremist rhetoric. and I did a Zoom with him. And after the Zoom, I'm like, this doesn't make much sense, but I'll have my team do some work. We did some work and we sent him a 2-page deck. And we said, here are our recommendations for taking the next step. One was the formation of a board. The second was the creation of dual class stock. The third was some reps and warranties around affiliated transactions and related party transactions. And the person that worked there called us back and literally, I'm not kidding you, said, go fuck yourself. Was quote unquote the response to us. We're like, okay. So that was the easy decision, but
message received.
Message received, but I still thought, okay, I'll just put that in the bucket of these guys are unbelievably arrogant and smug. But Brian, I thought what you thought, which is maybe it's because they've created some money-making machine in the Bahamas, and so they have that level of confidence. You know, but then to see this thing to the extent of which is now, we're only scratching the surface, guys. You know, we're going to find out stuff every day, which is there was a lot of venture firms in Silicon Valley in this period of both not doing any work or diligence who also took the extra step and actually created classes and would teach teams how to create these tokens. Okay, and those artifacts, those video links and artifacts are sometimes on their website. They're still on YouTube. They're inside of Twitter. And what these folks would do, and we talked about this, the game that they played was they would get a team, they would create a token, they would also buy equity at some crazy valuation. The equity was locked up, but the tokens were not. And then they would put them on an exchange and sell them to unsuspecting people, and they would be able to dump these tokens. And if you look inside of that trend, what you're going to see, and Brian just mentioned this, those were the sale of securities, except it was done in a completely unregulated way. So if the SEC is really, and the DOJ is really going to take this FTT token issue seriously and what happened to FTX, they're going to start to look at a bunch of other tokens and token sales, and you're going to end up looking at some very well-known venture firms inside of Silicon Valley.
So, guys, did you like Chamath's view? Comment your opinion on the comments below. He sure showed us about FTX. And if you guys liked the video, then do subscribe to our channel for more of content like this. It would sure motivate us to bring more videos like this to help you guys knowing finance. Thanks again for watching the video. Hope to see you again. You might want to watch this video shown right now.